And have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips. And if anybody wants to protest what we do or violate what we want, we just turn off the chip.
That's right, microchipped. In 2005, Congress, under the pretense of immigration control and the so-called War on Terrorism, passed the Real ID Act, under which it is projected by May 2008, you will be required to carry around a federal identification card, which includes on it a scannable barcode with your personal information. However, this barcode is only an intermediary step before the card is equipped with a VeriChip RFID tracking module, which will use radio frequencies to track your every move on the planet. If this sounds foreign to you, please note that the RFID tracking chip is already in all new American passports. And the final step is the implanted chip, which many people have already been manipulated into accepting under different pretenses.
We have a Florida family who are really pioneers of a brave new world. They have volunteered to be the first ever to have microchip identification devices implanted into their body.
After 9/11, I was really concerned with the security of my family.
I wouldn't mind having something planted permanently in my arm that would identify me.
In the end, everybody will be locked into a monitored control grid where every single action you perform is documented. And if you get out of line, they can just turn off your chip, for at that point in time, every single aspect of society will revolve around interactions with the chips. This is the picture that is painted for the future if you open your eyes to see it. A centralized one-world economy where everyone's moves and everyone's transactions are tracked and monitored, all rights removed. The most incredible aspect of all, these totalitarian elements will not be forced upon the people. The people will demand them. For the social manipulation of society through the generation of fear and division has completely detached humans from their sense of power and reality. A process which has been going on for centuries, if not millennia. Religion, patriotism, race, wealth, class, and every other form of arbitrary, separatist identification, and thus conceit, has served to create a controlled population, utterly malleable in the hands of the few. Divide and conquer is the motto, and as long as people continue to see themselves as separate from everything else, they lend themselves to being completely enslaved. The men behind the curtain know this, and they also know that if people ever realize the truth of their relationship to nature, and the truth of their personal power, the entire manufactured zeitgeist they prey upon will collapse like a house of cards.
There is new technology out designed to tighten security and speed the flow of traffic on the country's northern border. It's called Radio Frequency Identification Technology, or RFID. And it was introduced in Buffalo yesterday. The device has sensors inside that read a chip embedded in passport cards, enhanced driver's licenses, and Nexus cards. By simply driving past a sensor, border agents can gather the information of everyone inside a car before they even get to the booth. Everyone will be required to have an enhanced driver's license, passport card, or passport to cross the Canadian border starting in June of next year.
Hey, I'm Kinga Phillips, and this is Google Current. Searches were up for Baja Beach Club this week, a nightclub in Barcelona. Now, the place looks like a good time, but people all over the world don't start searching for a nightclub unless it's doing something freaky. And it is. The club began injecting ID chips into its VIP guests 2 years ago. The right-size chips allow VIPs to skip the whole velvet rope routine, get into the swanky VIP areas, and charge drinks automatically. Sort of like starting a tab in your arm. This week, a U.S. company called CityWatcher.com adopted the same technology and implanted chips into a few employees, eliminating the need for company IDs or access cards. Of course, the companies manufacturing the chips, like the VeriChip Corporation, maintain that their goal is to improve our lives. VeriChip's website focuses on health concerns and safety that shows how their products prevent Alzheimer's patients from wandering off or babies being delivered to the wrong mothers.
Gen 2 tag.
Sure. Tom O'Boyle with Miles Technologies. I'm the Vice President of RFID Systems. Tom, what's the most interesting thing you've seen at the show?
Interesting things I've seen at the show is a new handheld application, or new handheld device, which is really kind of, I think, going to revolutionize the industry. A little bit of small little USB reader at a low price point that we can use for some of our medical applications.
What do you see as the most innovative thing going on here?
I think the most innovative thing going on is in the, I would call it the consumerization of RFID. So especially with the new developments in RFID-enabled mobile phones, I think we're going to see an explosion in new RFID-enabled mobile applications, which is just going to be incredible, I think, for consumers.
Of all these growing
Euro crisis. The answer, of course, is more Europe. That's what we hear from Mr. Barroso and Mr. Van Rompuy. And now we have this new ESM treaty, the European Stabilisation Mechanism. And the idea is there'll be a treaty change coming up, perhaps within the next 18 months or 2 years. This new treaty is, I think, the worst development yet in the European Union. It gives complete arbitrary power to unelected foreign bureaucrats to take control of the economies of countries, and even if they make an absolute mess of the whole thing, it gives them a total immunity from prosecution for life.
I got some information the other day that during another crisis in Central America, the banks were in trouble, and our Fed went to the IMF and told the IMF to pay the interest to the banks. I mean, that's how corrupt it is. And the whole thing is as this system continues to falter, they're not going to give up. They're going to move all these shenanigans over to the IMF. They're going to have a world organization. So the powerful elite then will have a world currency. That's what they're being planning for right now. So we as a people really have to wake up.
This rhetorical question is perhaps self-answering. A protest called Occupy Wall Street, trying to underscore and gum up the financial industry's influence on who's rich and who's not. Why wouldn't that get extensive news coverage? In our third story, after 5 straight days of sit-ins, marches, and shouting, and some arrests, actual North American newspaper coverage of this, even by those who have thought it farce or failure, has been limited to one blurb in a free newspaper in Manhattan and a column in the Toronto Star. It started Saturday when about 1,000 people marched into New York's financial district to express their anger over how the financial system treats the majority of Americans, what they call the 99%ers, and to draw attention to the misdeeds of Wall Street. They have been confronted with an ever-increasing police presence, which is blocking certain streets and attempting to keep protesters away from the stock exchange itself. While the protesters are peaceful, tensions are beginning to rise. According to the group's own website, 7 protesters were arrested yesterday, with 4 more being arrested today. The police have resorted to using a 166-year-old law which bans the wearing of masks in a gathering of 2 or more people, except at masquerade parties. Simple solution to that crap: call those protests outdoor masquerade parties. While the majority of the media is ignoring the public uprising, it is not going completely unnoticed. Take, for instance, Yahoo, which blocked any email containing the group's website with the message, "Suspicious activity has been detected on your account." Yahoo later acknowledged the error, tweeting, "We apologize for blocking OccupyWallStreet.org. It was not intentional and caught by our spam filters. It is resolved, but may be a residual delay." Joining me now is
a global outcry against corporate greed has risen up in almost 1,000 cities worldwide. People have taken their anger to the streets, saying their governments have been taken over by big business. The Occupy Wall Street movement began in New York, quickly spreading across the US to Los Angeles, Denver and Washington, among others. It's since gone global, with Asia joining in the demands for change. In Europe too, hundreds of cities are taking part in the protests. Well, let's now take a closer look at what's happening around the world with our correspondents. We've got Marina Portnaya in New York.
Well, as you mentioned, this turnout here in New York is the largest that it's been in the past 4 weeks. Let's remember, it was 4 weeks ago when the Occupy Wall Street movement started off here in Zuccotti Park, where I'm standing by Wall Street. Now, what these activists are saying...
Part of the protests today have been very peaceful, but the atmosphere here has just suddenly, in the last few moments, got a lot more tense. That's because the police, which are still in vast numbers here, and you can see the line of police vans behind me, the protesters are gathered behind there.
So despite the cold is getting bigger and it's getting angrier, shouting slogans against the banks and the governments which keep rescuing them with public money. Authorities first tried to ban this grouping, saying there was no running water for them, which many saw as an excuse to stop them getting together. But they have finally given in to the weight of numbers, and they now plan an all-night...
Hundreds of thousands of young people, not just in Madrid, but in cities and towns all across the country, were protesting the austerity measures taken by their government. They were protesting against...
Because we're talking about taking back our humanity. Taking back our humanity right now here. That's why we're here. We're in a crisis here. But when there's a crisis, there are challenges and opportunities. We're here because we're taking up the challenge and the opportunity here. We support something that is happening not only here in Oakland, it's happening in almost 500 cities around the world. It's happening with young people.